Dominique Strauss-Kahn, thank you very much for talking to us today. You've been discussing the importance and the self-reinforcing qualities of peace and prosperity, that both are necessary conditions for the other. What do you mean by that, and why are you choosing to talk about this subject at this moment?
Because I think that we're all happy of having good news from the growth side, and that we forecast recovery coming soon. At IMF have always forecast that the global recovery will take place in the first half of 2010, maybe a little earlier. But I want to warn everybody that it's not the end of the crisis. There's a lot in front of us, especially in terms of unemployment, of poverty, even if growth comes back, and especially in the low-income countries. And the question in those countries is not only a question of purchasing power or unemployment, it can be also a question of social unrest, a threat to democracy, and even war. We had a lot of examples in history. So what I wanted to underline is the fact that when we're fighting for recovering, we're also fighting for peace.
Now, 4 years ago at Glen Eagles, poverty was right at the top of the agenda for the G8. Is it necessary to put poverty higher up the agenda for the G20 in that case? Is that what you're...
Well, if the different countries, having made commitment that Glen Eagles will already give what they said at this time would be good. The problem is with the economic slowdown, one of the most difficult things for the different countries, the donors, is to go on and to fulfill their commitment. So what I would ask and really urge the country to do is exactly to provide the money they announced in Glen Eagles. We're far from that.
And I think the arguments you're making are generally linked in the common mind with the criticisms that Keynes made of the Treaty of Versailles, which required big reparations from the Germans after World War I, which is obviously now regarded as a great historic mistake. Does the fact that you're raising this now mean that you think there's a real reason to worry that we might make a mistake of that magnitude again in the wake of this crisis?
Well, we're not asking a country to repay something like after a war, but we may be not aware enough that we need to help countries to recover, really fighting poverty, not only going back to positive growth. You know, the difference between 0.2 or minus 0.2 in terms of growth is symbolic, but doesn't change the reality on the field. In the field, in low-income countries especially, you may have a lot of people where the question is a question of life or death. So if we don't want this to come to lead to unrest and maybe war, we really need to make a step forward. The Treaty of Versailles was a very good example of a short-sighted decision where people believed that it wouldn't have any kind of consequences to have such a large number of people being in poverty.
And finally, given that it seems it's very much espousing the Keynesian line, at least with regards to fighting poverty, does that mean that we are all Keynesians now?
In my view, we all have been Keynesian. You know, the first government putting in place a big stimulus, rightly, was the Bush administration. So they won't probably claim they're Keynesian, but it depends on the situation you're facing. There's no truth in being Keynesian or being anti-Keynesian. It depends what kind of situation you face. Today, we're facing, and probably for the coming years, global demand, which will be too low, so we need to find a way to boost the demand. In other period, the other may be true, and the question could be a supply side question. Today is really a demand side question.
After a banking crisis, it's difficult to get output back up again.
Yeah, it's difficult because even the banking sector has not been totally repaired. I mean, the cleansing of the balance sheet is not over. A lot has been done, but it's not enough, and that's probably one of the reasons why the credit flows do not resume as before the crisis. So we're still, even if things are improving, of course, we're still in the crisis, and we shouldn't forget that we have a lot of things to do ahead.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Mr.
Thank you.